Well, I've maintained a lot of good contacts with my colleagues in Ireland over the years, and from time to time I get back here, particularly to University College. When Fiona contacted me about this, it was very clearly something that I would learn a lot from, possibly could contribute to, and so I was very enthusiastic to come, both personally and actually on behalf of my institute. Yeah, I think one of the things that we push hard on in my institute, and I think it's a common theme here, is the role of science in getting much more quantitative information in front of us so that policy decisions can actually be made within a framework of rationality. I think we're all sophisticated enough to understand that politics can be complicated. But nevertheless, unless the right facts are in front of the policymakers, then it is very difficult to get the right policies. Yeah, there's a lot of misperceptions about climate change, what it means for us, how it's measured, the controversies in the media, and so on. And so I think education at university with undergraduates who are capable of then taking in a much higher degree of detail than, say, the general public can, is also a way of propagating a better understanding of what we are dealing with. The controversies are often not about whether climate change is taking place. Ideologically, there are people who don't want to believe that the anthropogenic CO2 that has been generated is the cause of it, and of course there may be multiple causes, but nevertheless we need to get a fuller understanding of that, and I think that can be done at an institute in a university with bright undergraduates and graduate students.
Fantastic, yeah.
Yes, I think number one is understanding what we really mean by sustainability, because sustainability could be calculated in a very narrow corridor of parameters, and if it were, you might believe you're in some kind of homeostasis for agriculture, so things are more or less the same year after year. But long-term sustainability does require the input of a lot of different parameters in order to understand. And one of the things that many groups are trying to do is to put much more quantitation on those key parameters. How much energy is required to grow food? What are the secondary consequences of growing food? How do we get water? How much energy does it cost to get water there? And so on. So it is a much more complicated equation than we sometimes think. I think this is a particularly interesting gathering because of the range of science that's here, and in fact the policy people who are here as well. The most important thing I think for scientists, we obviously have to do our science, but we also need the dialogue with policymakers and through the process of policy making in order to understand how we can be most effective. Obviously we have to deliver the facts. We also have to reiterate certain things. If certain facts are more important than other facts, we need to be able to get that balance communicated. And it isn't always the easiest thing in the world. It doesn't come naturally as a scientist to slice and dice all of that out and then talk with policymakers. So it's quite an education, I think, for us here to be in a group that is mixed like that, different disciplines of science and also people who are at the cutting edge of policy. I think the biggest factor of all is going to be our energy use with transportation, and we will have to look at ways in which transportation, both air travel and ground travel, are dealt with. I do believe an awful lot of the other things we depend on, I'm just thinking electricity in our homes and so on, will probably be dealt with to a large extent by a rebelief in nuclear energy as well as some renewables, a combination of those things. But I think our biggest challenge right now, there is no, for example, there's no engine imagined for aircraft that does not run off a liquid fuel. And we have no prospect of that for the next 30, 40 years. And so, the transportation issue is still going to be a very big issue for us, I think.